We are almost at the finish line, folks. I'm John Renton with the Retro Review of WCW Nitro for March 19, 2001. Taking place at Gainesville, Georgia. It is the post-Greed Nitro. And as Bischoff would reveal a little bit later in the show as he would call in, he would offer a look into the future of WCW, and it's bleak. Pretty fucking bleak to the point that the whole season finale of Nitro next week would end up just being the finale. So let's take the season off because everything is fucking done. Jamie Kellner said, hey, Bischoff's group, you want to buy this? Fine, you can get everything except the TV time. Well, no viable way to, monetize a wrestling company if you don't have proper TV time. At least in 2001. Now, had it been when they could have done streaming, okay, sure. But streaming wasn't around at this fucking time, or at least not nearly in the form, the form that it is now, because the internet, while getting better, was still well away from what it would be right now. And also, let's just be perfectly honest, WCW was a once proud brand, and I don't even know if a reboot would have saved WCW. It would have been just carrying on the legacy. Would it have been the later days of WCW? Would it have been a new WCW? Who the fuck knows? At the time, I would like to have seen WCW saved, but I just don't know if anything could have saved it. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. So, graphic tribute to DDP because of Scott Steiner beating him at Greed. The whole in memory of DDP, kind of fitting because the company would be dead in just a few fucking days. Half of Rick's group shows up, and Steiner basically just shouts a lot. Commentary talking about how Bischoff's going to call in to address the future of WCW. They talk about what they did at Greed. Flair says that him and Jarrett beat the Rhodeses. They didn't. The Rhodeses are on the screen. You will kiss my white ass, Dusty says. And Dusty says, hey, Scott, somebody wants you bad. Here's Booker. Dusty's apparently running things, despite the fact Flair is the CEO. Booker says, hey, I'm the U.S. champion. Scott, I'm coming after your title, but also be here in an hour because you're going to want to hear this stuff. That's a way to hook people, I guess. Or Booker's like, shit, we're having problems with the phone. Hey, Scott, call back in an hour. We'll need you to put on hold. One moment, please, and a representative will be with you. So we get footage of Buff and Animal yelling at the cameraman, hey, who's doing this? Go find Lex. We're just going to start blaming everybody because the Magnificent Seven are just rapidly eroding. Jason Jett with Disco Inferno, versus Disco Inferno with Mike Sanders. And Jett showed up Disco, which isn't hard to do at all. Sanders does some distraction spots. Disco did sloppy shit. And he eventually did hit the crash landing 1, 2, 3. This is after Sanders tried to hit Jett and ended up hitting Disco because Mike Sanders is also a goof. And then Rick is telling Jarrett that he can't kiss anyone's ass. Helms cuts a promo about winning the Cruiserweight title, but that he replaced Kidman as Super Brawl to get this opportunity. So, Kidman, I beat you once, you beat me once, let's have another match. And they did. And it was really short. And he beat Kidman with the Vertebreaker. Next week is the season finale of Nitro. They kept saying that. And God, it's fucking just weird to hear. Chavo attacks Helms, and then Skipper and Kid Romeo join. Ray comes in, a very loud shirt, a shirt so loud you could have heard it in space. And we just get a friggin', melee there. And then Lex is laid out backstage. Bam Bam talks about greed. And, yeah, he's talking about how, a man shouldn't need a woman to fight his battles. Talking about how Stacy threw a copy of Hairspray at Sean Stasiak, and he used that. Actually, it wasn't a copy of Hairspray, but it would have been just about as useful. And then Animal and Buff and Lex yell about shit, and then here's just Stacy and Sean, potato chip eating fans and whatever. Nothing against Sean Stasiak, but they waited too long to try to do anything useful with him, and nobody really cared about this pairing with Stacy because everybody's focusing on Stacy. Now, Sean wasn't a good athlete, it just didn't fucking work. Stasiak took on Bam Bam, and it was a rematch. We get the Hairspray attempt. And Greens from Asbury Park, 1, 2, 3. So Bam Bam gets his win back. And then Stasiak's like, I want a rematch. Bam Bam's like, okay, I get to tattoo you if I win. Oh, I wasn't talking about Stacy. I was talking about you. That's pretty much a summary right there. Here's Scott Steiner, Ric Flair, and also Terry Taylor happens to be there with the contract. Why is he there with the contract? What the hell is going on? Booker shows up and says, shut up and listen. Bischoff talks about how, for the last 6 months, he's had groups tried by WCW, and that, they've hit some roadblocks, and one in particular could be, insurmountable. Talks about how next week could be the last episode of Nitro in absolute silence, and I don't even think it was shocked. People were just like, a wrestling company that we once loved, that we basically are getting into for free now, is just, is going under. I wonder what the fuck we're going to do with our lives. Probably stop watching wrestling because WWE took a fucking dip in 2001 as well. Bischoff talks about how next week will be a night of champions. And it's going to be a champion versus champion match. U.S. versus World Championship. Scott Steiner versus Booker T. Any former WCW champions are welcome. Bring your boots. Bischoff tells Flair that he will kiss Dusty's ass if he knows what's good for him, basically. Scott then makes multiple men take his lengthy pipe all over them and then puts one of them through a table. I think it might have been Wildcat Chris Harris or the future Wildcat Chris Harris. And Booker signs a contract, and next week we're going to have that match. And an actual pretty decent match. I will say about the finale of Nitro is it actually was pretty emotional because you're seeing a company that I fucking loved and a lot of people loved shut down. And actually overall wasn't that bad of an episode, all things considered. But the company was so fucking bankrupt creatively and bankrupt for money. I mean, they fucking lost a lot of money in 2000. Nothing was going to save them. We think of Canyon versus M.I. Smooth. This was a feud I did not care about. Smooth moving remarkably well despite the fact that just recently, he on TV, I believe on Thunder, he had his limo tipped over. And then he showed up on Nitro all beat up. And then he showed up at the pay-per-view somehow fine. And now he's totally fine doing Ice Train shit because it is former Ice Train. And that was it. Later, Animal runs in DDT Smooth. And Miller runs down to attack Animal but doesn't save Smooth quick enough. So Canyon gets the win. And then he attacks everybody and we get a melee. And we're going to have a tag match on Thunder. Because that's a way to hook people to watch the Final Thunder is to watch Ernest Miller and M.I. Smooth versus Canyon and Animal. Road Warrior Animal in a match in 2001. Even though the Road Warriors are one of my favorite tag teams of all time, god fucking damn it. Anyway, Dustin has burritos for Dusty. 33 of them. Rick Steiner versus Conan. Well, it spills outside. We get some weird action. Later, Shane Douglas hits Rick to cause a DQ. And then Hugh Morris shows up. And maybe we'll get a tag match next, on Thunder. Why not? Thunder tends to be tag match central. Rick was confronted about the attacks. And this was awkward. Very awkward. Lance and Austin talk about going for the tag titles, and they beat Palumbo and O'Hare in a decent match. It wasn't bad. We get a chair to the back of Palumbo's head from Mike Awesome, right next to the referee. How he didn't hear that, how he didn't get brained by that goddamn chair, I have no idea. Running Awesome Bomb 1, 2, 3. Jared and Flair show up, they cut promos. Flair calls him Dirty Dusty, or calls Dusty Dirty Dusty. Here's Dusty with a donkey, that poor scared donkey. Dustin's also on the stage. And it's got Dusty's ass written on it. Because, get it, a donkey's an ass. Do you get it? Do you get the subtle humor? Flair and Jarrett argue. They knock down Dustin. Dusty attacks both. He gets a low blow. They try to put his face in the donkey's ass. And no, they get their faces in the donkey's ass, on the side of the ass. And that's it. You know what? That's a fitting addition for the final Nitro before the actual final Nitro. Like the final one before, like they say, hey, WWE's going to take over creatively and we're just going to do all this shit to basically wrap things up. So yeah, two guys kissing a donkey's ass. I don't think anything can summarize last year at WCW better than that. Anyway, agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm Charles Ritlin. I'll see you soon.